AJ, do you want to make a brief introduction of who you are? I guess by the title, everyone can tell, but if you can make a brief introduction.
Sure. My name is AJ Dimick. I am the Director of Esports Operations at the University of Utah. We are a collegiate esports program that is in our 9th year of operation now. We are one of the older ones. When we started in 2016, we were the 30th school in the country to have a varsity esports program. We were the first Power 5 school. So back then it was really smaller schools, and we were the first big football school to do it. Now they're over 600. We are still doing it, and it's been a crazy ride ever since. We house it in an academic unit in the Division of Games here at the University of Utah, which is a kind of a different circumstance than exists elsewhere. And so we have a little bit of a different way to look at it.
Amazing. I just put my AirPods out because I was like a audible sound, but yeah, amazing. So AJ, what would you say differentiates you from the rest of collegiate programs? Like, what is let's say that core identity that you?
There's a couple of things, and you can't extricate it that we are housed in an academic unit, and so our 37 scholarships players, half of them comes from the games program. And so we come at it from a really educational point of view of we need to do research. We need to involve tenure line professors. We need to do things with our program that kind of brings this along. And this is such a new thing that esports is really still in its infancy, despite the fact that there's such rigidity and everyone says we have to do it the same way. But we don't know the best way to train these athletes. We don't know the best way to stream this product. We don't know the differences how you consume it. We don't know how to change lifespans of games and doing all those things. And those are all the things that collegiate esports programs should be part of and should be invested in. And we want that is part of what we do, that we not only want to compete in this space and win championships to do all those things, but we want to move the industry forward, and we want to have research and publishing things and really exploring what this thing is while we're participating in it.
Okay. And when you first started, because you were one of the first universities to start at a varsity level. Okay. You started 2017 or
we announced the program in 2016, way back when. Yeah, it was, to tell a story, the Pac-12, the athletic conference that our college participates in, was sniffing around it for a long time and decided not to do it. Simultaneously, way back when, we had one of the biggest student clubs in the country, the Crimson Gaming Club. And that's an important thing. Everywhere, every college in America that's done esports, it starts out as an organic student movement. And it is a by students, for students type of thing. It is not for people with this much gray in their beard. And so they were knocking on the door and making this happen. They were loud and proud and very visible and doing the things which were noticed by the campus. And so because athletics conferences were interested in it, and because we had the #1 games program in the country on campus as an academic unit, and because we had that big student organic body, we were able to put this together way early and put some money together, put some budget together in its infancy, find rooms, find computers, just throwing it all together at that time, and become the 31st school in the country to do this as a varsity thing, and the first Power 5 school, so the first big football school. And that's important because the motivations behind getting involved with this are very different for the little teeny schools relative to much larger schools.
Can you expand
on
that a bit?
So primarily, I mean, Robert Morris University was the very first one, with Kurt Melcher being the one that kind of pulled it out. We need to acknowledge him being kind of the father of collegiate esports. And so he was the first one to put together, and it was lots of smaller campuses. And the motivations for doing it is you're not going to make millions of dollars doing this. So that's not it. But if you are a tiny campus in Ohio with 1,800 students, and you make a computer lab, and you make an esports programs, and you make a LAN center, and there's 150 students on your campus that weren't there before, that moves the needle for you quite a bit. And so for those schools, there was a recruitment and retention sort of motivation for them to want to be involved. There is no notion of a recruitment and retention motivation for us to want to be involved. That's not a thing. there's plenty of students everywhere. For us, it is far more of a student life and a branding issue and that research element to be involved with it. And so for me personally, not speaking for the university, there's a whole population of students on our campus that don't care if the football team won on Saturday and don't care if the basketball team. And those students tend not to identify with the universities quite in the way of the students that are interested in those things. And for me, I wanted to give them something that was for them, that was theirs. And those students, when they wear the school colors and they put on the things, and it's the school that is saying, this is important to us. This is part of what the collegiate experience is here. There's a whole population of those students that will identify with that university in ways they simply did not before. And so to me, that's what it's about. Apart from that, it's the academic element, the competitive element, the research element are all motivations to want to be involved with this space. Yeah.
And also something that I experienced when I went to the US to study was like in some small private universities, you don't have this generational, like, I'm going to University of Utah when I grow up, and universities like yours have it. So
yeah, it is very different. But it's interesting, like for college athletics, we now have like 140, 150 year history of some of those things where it was your father, your grandfather, your great grandfather that were all involved with it. So it's tribal. In esports, we're 10, 15 years into this. And for those smaller schools, you might see some of that with their kids. And so there's opportunities there. And there's a lower point of entry into getting in it. It doesn't cost as much as fielding a football team or a basketball team and those types of things. So those small schools, it's a lower barrier of entry, and it appeals to a wider variety of students than some of those other things. And it's just a good thing for them to be involved with.
Mm-hmm. One thing I want to touch on, you said that retention is not one of your objectives for your students. Why don't, as a program, you don't measure retention and put that metric in front of the admin, like average retention of student retention throughout the years, and in your esports program, this is how much more retention we can achieve? Or is it something that is not?
Because it is the division of games, the academic unit in the college that I'm in, has students bursting in the seams. Okay. We keep on having to build buildings, build classrooms, build things, hire faculty like crazy. It's an explosion. Okay. And so there is nothing the esports program can do to help or affect that. But all those students that do come in that population of students, they all care about games for obvious reasons, and they are all invested in this. And so it can't simply be a academic investment and cold things that we do when we do that. It's also a cultural investment when we do this. And so there has to be a thriving games club. There has to be a thriving LAN center. There has to be a esports team and reasons to care about it. And so it is a part of it, but it exists with or without it.
Okay. Understood. And for those in the scene, how do you secure those kind of fundings, to have a new building, all the infrastructure how you have? Is it by the number of students that you attract to the program, or how do you?
Well, separating that of yes, like students fund the games program, and presidential funding and all things, and presidential funding and other things fund the buildings we have to build, because we keep on in the games program, we keep on not being able to fit in our building, and we have changed building 3 times now, and each time I think this is an inexhaustible supply of space, and it's not. It's like hard drive space. You keep on running out and needing to get a bigger one. And so yes, the esports program started out as, because there was no funding at the beginning, started as a leap of faith with the president's office at the University of Utah, as discretionary funding from the president's office. And from that, you build there. We are funded by the Division of Games, and we are funded by a discretionary fund of the president's office. And you are funded by what you can go get with donations and sponsorships and things of that nature, just like every other esports program of the nature. What's important to understand is, as esports not only here but everywhere in the country, this is a finite solution to the esports programs and the way we do it, and this will run out. And so we need a sustainability model for esports at the University of Utah and everywhere to figure out how we are going to keep funding this. And the students, you want full ride scholarships and want all those things. We need to go get viewership. We need media rights. We need to be able to sell those things. And so college esports as a whole, we have to start working this out of how we are going to get to that sustainability model, or we're just going to have to accept the scope that it exists at, and that it's going to be a smaller one than it is, and that'll just be the way it is. And so those are big problems to solve as this thing continues to grow and develop, and seemingly everyone and their mother being part of it.
Yeah. And you mentioned also full rights. On the current scenario, how sustainable are full rights?
They are not very at all. I mean, so like when you get in those things of like, if you're going to scholarship 30 students with full rides at a public university, a private university is a different matter, right? They don't have rules about those things. So instead of scholarshiping you, they can just not charge you. At a public university, that's not a thing. So you have to account for those funds, and that's millions of dollars. It gets up there really fast. And so there's not a lot of those schools in the country. I have enough fingers to count them that can do it in the country. And if we got to figure out the sustainability model to do this, otherwise it'll start trending the other way, and there won't be as many as there are now.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we never say to our students that we guarantee full rights, although some of them international students are like, are there any full rights? And then we explain, and
right.
And of course, academics is first.
And I get those questions all the time too. And the immediate thing I point out when to do is go look at the viewership for collegiate esports. And so go look at what it is. We have to affect that. This thing does have to have a bigger foothold with an audience to make those things easier to happen. And so it's on all of us that we have grown an infrastructure here of there are now 600 schools in the country in some way or other invested in the esports space, that now we have to build a structure around it where those funding models come in and the sustainability models come in, so that we can continue to throw those resources at students and participants and players that want to be involved with this.
Are we at the level of discussing media rights? Because the viewership for collegiate esports?
So getting at the heart of the matter, collegiate esports is the Wild West. If you talk about football, there's a governing body that runs the entire thing, the NCAA, which is a group of presidents, a collection of presidents, and they make rules. And there's even congressional law, which affects college football and basketball. And there's rules about amateurism, about who's a pro and who's an amateur, who can participate, rules about how to transfer, maximum rules of how much money somebody can make. More recently, just in the last 5 years, NIL is a thing in college sports where now the players can make money and they couldn't before at all. And so, but there is a rigidity and a functioning governing body. Collegiate esports doesn't have that in any way, shape, or form. So what we do have is the publishers themselves, the people that own the games, which is different. In football, nobody owns the game. In this space, somebody owns the game, and they get a big say about how it's run, and the tournament organizers. And then there's 7. There's not one League of Legends league in collegiate esports. There's a million of them. There's not one Overwatch league. There's a million of them. And there's no governing body. There's no organization around this. There's no way to collectively create value around our product and do things, because there's too many cooks in the kitchen. There's not enough people pulling in the same direction. There's not enough rules, and we have to solve that. And so one of the big things as collegiate esports moves forward is we do need a governing body that is not anyone else but the schools themselves to be involved with this, to be able to figure out how to run this, how to protect our students, and how to fund them, and how to move this thing forward, so that the publishers and the tournament organizers and external bodies and third-party things, which are sometimes bad actors in the space, aren't the ones also determining how it works.
Okay, but aren't the schools like already like involved in conferences like NACE or
Sure,
NECP?
but they self-form things and then they negotiate with the publishers of those types of things, but the publishers are still in charge. And what you see very little of in organizations like NACE and those other things is there's very little presidential involvement in those things. Those are still run by the esports programs and the colleges and sometimes the presidents, and there's still heavy industry influence on those things and still a determination, and the publisher could still yank its game away from it anytime it wanted to and say you can't do this anymore with our title and things like that. And so yes, it's trying to do all the right things, but we need a much larger scope version of it, and we need the presidents themselves to be the ones to be involved with these things, and that is a big need in our space. And the biggest thing that I'm going to get in trouble for saying what I'm about to say. The biggest thing that
we're live.
Yeah,
I can edit.
We need, the only way we can create leverage is to be game agnostic. And so when we create that governing body, we have to go to the publishers and we have to go to the things to negotiate the things that we need out of it. And so we have to be able to walk and say, you're not giving us what we need. We need to go do it somewhere else. And so when we say we absolutely have to play League of Legends, we absolutely have to play Overwatch, or we absolutely have to play Valorant, we don't have any leverage for it because the publisher does, because they're on the hook for it. And so being game agnostic is one of the only ways where we can create those things to negotiate what is best for our students. And if a game title, if Counter-Strike all of a sudden had 50 schools that were giving full rides for it and a centralized stream that was a big deal for it in production, there'd be a lot of college students playing Counter-Strike. I mean, there are anyway, but this is an example. But that's the big deal. What players want is they like funding, they like money, and they like bright lights and big stages, and they'll go for wherever those things are. And so being game agnostic and be able to create that leverage to schools is one of the things that we can do.
Amazing. I have two questions. Okay, first, is it the esports director that has to go to the president and be more involved with the conference, or is it the conferences that need to go to more like the presidents of the university? Where do you see that happening?
I think it's the schools on their own. What really needs to happen is the esports directors and the programs themselves need to create a priority on their own campus that involves presidential involvement on their campus. And then the presidents themselves need to get together on their own, and voice is a big thing that I think will lead to this. And I think what they do is fantastic, where it's one of the best organizations that's been in our space since we've been doing this, that it can lead to that. Of the presidents can initiate data collection things. They can initiate research in the space. They can get all the information together, and they themselves have the authority, the signing authority on their campuses to create governing influences on this and create governing bodies, and to negotiate with publishers and tournament organizers the things that we need to get out of this. And we need that. We need a sustainability model and a way to do this where we own media rights, where we control exclusivity with a game. Like if there's 75 different Rocket League leagues, it's white noise. It becomes and so you have to determine which one counts as the national championship. And where is the beginning of a season? Where's the end of a season? And not let anything happen in the off season, because you assign value to your product if there's a certain time it begins and ends and has things in the middle, rather than there's a game every day forever all year long, and those types of things. And so those kind of structures and governing things are all the things we have to work out in collegiate esports.
Yeah, I was seeing on social media some beef on the CRL. Now you mentioned Rocket League, the CRL, then the NECC matches, then it was a bit
right. And so if you're heavily deep into it, you understand the distinctions between all those things. There's not enough of those people that are. And so we have to create value. I mean, it's a strange thing to say. We have to create value with what we're doing here by doing less of it. We need to have a centralized league where this is the thing that counts. This is the thing that doesn't count. This is what the college national championship is, and the other ones are not. And this is the end of the period. Like Rocket League is one of those things. They have fall leagues, they have spring leagues, they have summer leagues. and there's like no off season. Like, how do you change your teams in and out? It's really hard because there's no off season. Like, and that's one of my big issues. We need off seasons in these titles where the cycle begins and the cycle ends. So there's a buffer period to do the things under the hood that you need to do, and then it begins again.
And how do you put everyone on the same page to go under one umbrella?
Well,
like there's so many,
and that's why it's so hard. If you talk to any esports director, they have a different view of this. And if you talk to different types of schools, like the smaller schools, they have a different view of it and different motivations than the bigger schools. And so one of the things I think is possible and maybe probable is that in college athletics, there are different striations of leagues. There's Division I football, there's Division II football, there's NAIA football, and so there's the one where every team in is non-scholarship players, so they don't have to compete against scholarship players. There's partial scholarship leagues and things of that nature of are essentially like all the most funded schools are in a league together, the least funded schools are in a league together, and so on and so forth. And those are maybe the types of, when we have self-governance and organization, types of the organizational distinctions that we might make in collegiate esports.
Okay. And also, that was one of the points that you made with publishers. Okay. Why are publishers not motivated? Are they not incentivized with like collegiate esports? Like, why don't they facilitate more for the actors to build it with less restrictions, or why don't they do it themselves? Is it because of money? Why is it?
Yes. Well, and this has changed quite a bit. So there, this is one of the things if you've been doing this long enough. In 2015, 2016, all the publishers were much more involved with this because there was the perception that this is going to explode in the collegiate space. And so they were not only investing with their time, they were investing with their checkbooks, their money, and making these collegiate organizations at Blizzard and at Riot, all over the place. And so you have these direct first-party publisher leagues that were doing it themselves, creating these leagues in the collegiate space and putting a lot of money into it. And then they did it for 3 or 5 years. And while they could see every college this is big in the collegiate space, and they think there's a disproportionate of their user base in the college space that's playing these games. If you're a college student, you're more likely to be playing some of these games than if you're not. And so, but they know that. And so they have to ask themselves the question of, they're going to play the game. Do we need collegiate leagues to help with that? Or does it help? And if we're dumping $1 million a year in a collegiate league, does that actually get more of them to play it? Or what are we trying to get out of this? And so those are the types of questions that were persisted. Meanwhile, the schools are exploding and making all these collegiate teams, and our viewership is nothing. And full productions and do these things, and our viewership isn't significant, and they can see that. And so it becomes a point where a lot of them were doing the cost benefit analysis, and while they want this to be a thing, they don't want to lose a bunch of money while doing it. And so their solution universally to that is to license it out to third-party organizers to let them worry about the sustainability model for it and the thing for it. So they get it both ways. Collegiate esports get to exist. They get the benefits of it. It's somebody else's problem of the sustainability thing. And so a different set of priorities, a different set of things, it's sometimes a really short-sighted way to view it from them. And so yes. And so it transfers the negotiation to publishers, which when they're investing into it, it's a marketing expense for their game. And when they're investing into it, when it's a third-party organizer that is licensed, it sometimes paying to license it from the publisher, they have to make money with it, and their priorities and their objectives are sometimes different. And this sometimes lines up with what the schools need to, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's directly oppositional to what the schools need to do. And so that is the type of reason why we, as a collective of schools and people invest in this space, we don't play a big enough role figuring out what this is going to be. And that's another reason why I say we need to be game agnostic. And so if we are investing, like one of the rules I used to have when I was in the, like if I was going to invest budget into a game, I would look at what is the publisher investing into the game. And if they weren't investing anything into it in the collegiate ecosystem, then it didn't make sense for me to either, because they weren't helping growing it. And now none of them are. So that really can't be be one of the considerations to do it. And so it's just we have to be game agnostic so that we have the leverage to get the tools we need to get that sustainability model.
Yeah. No, and it's interesting as well because like in the US, in the K-12 space, like Overwatch 2 is like super big, and in the collegiate scene is like shrinking. So
yeah, it's really interesting because like in the collegiate space, like League of Legends is never the biggest community on campus. It used to be 6 or 7, 8 years ago, but it's always one of the most stable communities on campus. It's always there. It persists. And you can, like, if you're on a college campus, you know yourself, is there going to be a League of Legends community 5 years from now? And you're like, yeah, there will be. And it's not going to be the biggest one. But then you go to the high school scene and it's non-existent. None of them are playing it. And conversely, like there's beginning to be the contraction of Overwatch 2 teams in the collegiate space, and a lot of schools are dropping it. And it's still so present in the high school space. And those are the interesting things. Like Smash is huge in the K-12 scene, and it's some places in college and some places not at all, and some places it's really big. And the other thing is like regionally here, like the sports games like Madden and NCAA football are really big some places. And like at the University of Utah, if I walked into the student club and say who's playing some Madden, I would be exiled out of the room. Yeah.
On another point that I wrote, I mean, it's just out of curiosity, like with the years of experience that you've been in the collegiate scene and everything, like, do you know like what publishers, like what parameters they look at when selecting a third party to license? Is there any? Is it just contact? Like how does that work?
I mean, I can't speak for them, and anything I say is speculation. So let me speculate about what they're doing, and with the caveat that maybe they come and tell me I'm really wrong.
Out of curiosity.
The way they operate anymore is how do they have a persistent presence in the space without investing any resources in it whatsoever? And so they want other people to go get those resources and not come directly from the publisher. And so it really is trying to have it both ways of how do we exist here, how do we be relevant here, and how do we do it at no cost. And at this point, that's what where the publishers are at, is they are not allocating any resources to it whatsoever. The tournament organizers who are licensing it do, the conferences do, other people do, and the publishers send a lot of cease and desist orders to collegiate things that are out of bounds from their community guidelines and things like that. So they still play a big role with those things, but no, like the angle really does seem to be, how do I have my cake and eat it too? How do we be relevant in this space, and how do we still try to angle ourselves to be the dominant collegiate title and angle that, but not spend any money to do it?
Yeah. Interesting. And what gets more players to, like, we're getting out of collegiate esports here, but like you mentioned, but what gets more players to a video game? Is it esports itself, or is it media?
So it's like a competitive threshold. There are so many kids in this space where they play it all day long because they like the game that much. Yeah. And it's interesting, like in the Overwatch community, will tell you how much they hate the game while they play it 40 hours a week. There's like it's a fun activity. It's my thing, and I'm invested into it. I'm competitive, I like to be good. And then there's the uber threshold, where the really competitive players, the one that are really good to it. And so to me, they like resources, they like money, they like attention, they like a stage to play on, and they like bright lights and places to go. And to those ilk of competitors, they go where that exists. And so if you're a first person shooter and that existed in Overwatch, that's what they would play. And if that existed in Valorant, that's what they would play. And it's like, where's the money? Where's the attention? Where is the big thing? And like at the super high level, that's why I think we have leverage to be game agnostic is if we can create those circumstances with a more on one title than we can on another, then we should. If Blizzard gave us the biggest sweetheart deal where they created a centralized national championship, we played the championship at a huge LAN, and the players all got ginormous sums of money to win the championship or a prize money to participate in that thing, there'd be a lot more players all real fast to those things. And so that's leverage for us of we don't have to be bound to a game title if we can't turn it into something that moves forward, elevates, gets more attention, and grows into something bigger. We can do something else. And so we should be game agnostic, and we should go to wherever it is that whatever publisher will give us the tools to do those things.
Amen. Also, I wanted to read a comment from Brendan from Endicott College. He said, on the title agnostic point, are there types of games we should invest in? For instance, Roblox and Fortnite are our most popular titles here. They both are anchored by a creative element, unlike traditional FPS games.
Yeah, Roblox, there's a huge Roblox community, and the Fortnite community is waning, but it's always there. And so game agnostic means game agnostic. Like that when we're game agnostic, we go where the energy takes us. But we also go wherever if Epic wanted to if Epic wanted to open lobbies for Fortnite so that we could just put all the people in it that we want to do on our own. And if they made a huge championship in Raleigh at a esports event for Fortnite and they did prize money, then that is a very compelling thing that, yes, there would be a big investment into those things. And so I think, well, the most crass way to say this is what game agnostic means is we're for sale. And so whatever allows us to put resources and things in students' pockets and push things right down to them is the things that we should invest into. And so that's highly motivating of we shouldn't invest our energy in things that the publishers themselves are not investing their energies into.
That's a very good point. Yeah. And going back to your program a bit to wrap this talk, like for next year, what is one goal that you want to achieve?
That's a very good question. Everything changes every year. And one of the things it's interesting. Like if you talk to our students, they like an esports player, they will be very able to tell you all the things they don't have and all the things they could have. And they're very able to tell you all the things that maybe other schools have that they don't have. But if you come back and you talk to a student that was an esports player here in 2017, they'll be able to point out, you guys have it way better than we ever had it, and all the things. And so every single year there's a push to invest in facilities, to invest in equipment, to invest in merchandising, to invest in. But the biggest thing that we are concentrating on right now and that we want to push forward is we want to have the best broadcasting and production elements to our stream. We want to be able to put the most attention on them. And so, and being able to do player cams really well, to be able to do really interesting overlays, to be able to do Unreal Engine Twitch integration with our streams, to do those things. Like next year that we want to really move forward with a lot of those things. And so that it's a really big thing to our players and to our community. We want to be able to be seen by as many people as we can. We might want to grow out of spaces like Twitch. And the biggest reason is this has to appeal more than just to the core audience, the core gamer audience, because there's not enough of them. And so we have to appeal to people that are like the university, which means we are motivated to break off platforms just like Twitch and go to other things. And so that's kind of the immediate kind of trajectory that we want to be on is to keep pushing keep pushing to the cutting edge on our ability to stream, make content, make non-esports related content, and to create a brand around it, not only as an esports program, but as a content creation kind of program.
What platforms are you going to use, or are you planning to use or focus from Twitch to YouTube, or?
I mean, so those are the obvious choices, but one of the interesting things that we see other schools do and other things around the country is like some of them are doing local TV now, and some of them are negotiating with some of those things, which create platforms where you can sell inventory and things on, and like we're nowhere near that, but it's highly on the lookout that if the administrators in the park building and want to watch an esports game, and you tell them a Twitch channel to go to, none of them have ever been there before. I don't know what it looks like. And so it's one of those really interesting things with esports that I always say is on local news, when they'll do a story on esports, they'll say esports is a thing that's growing really big right now. And it's like, no, it grew really big 10 years ago. You just never noticed. And it's amazing to me how big and thriving it is, and yet still invisible to such a large segment of the populations. And the way we distribute it as content is a big part of that. And so, yes, YouTube and things that people that are a little bit outside of our sphere kind of see and those kind of things, but other things too. And what those things are right now, I don't know. But it's a really important, big priority to us. That one of the advantages that collegiate esports has that professional esports doesn't even have is what I was telling you before we started this is we have 150, 200 years of those notions of tribalism around our school brands, around our things. And those things are real and they're important to a certain population of the community. My mother doesn't necessarily understand everything about football, but if our football team loses, she will be upset for 4 days. And so those things exist, and we have to go get those people. We have to get that audience. We have to get the people that if it says Utah on it, then they'll give it a chance and they'll watch it a little bit. And so that means not only creating all that content and making it accessible, but putting it on places where those people are more likely to see it than just people that are looking for games.
Mm-hmm. And one thing was like, I was thinking while you were explaining it, like how do you think the stakeholders around the esports program of Utah would describe it?
They would describe it as cutting edge, and they would describe it as nuevo, as being on the tech thing, and they would associate it with the games program, which is the #1 ranked program in the world, and we're a part of that. And at Utah, it's a different kind of lens, because if there's no esports program, we're still more invested in video games than perhaps most or any schools in the country, except for a couple. And so the esports program doesn't get the attention for being the games investment on campus. It's one of the games things. And so we might be the 10th coolest thing in video games just in our own building. And so, but it's a big part of that. But I would like to think, and what is very clear is, as far as public attention and social media foothold and in the public consciousness, the esports team is ahead of all of that in there, and we get more attention. So we are the biggest marketing arm of games and tech things on our campus, which benefits the games program and other things on campus that we help and do help.
Yeah, amazing. Last question. So, if you had what would be the collegiate team that you would want to compete against like the most? You have the most competitive,
Well, and so like this is an interesting question, because there are teams out there like in League of Legends where you can compete, and they have 5 challenger players to go against of all semi-pro or former pro or things the most competitive in the world. And if you take it to people around campus, it's bad for 2 reasons. One, none of them will have any idea who they are. They won't have any notion that you have to tell them they're good and why, and they won't understand. And which means you're going to lose, and you're going to lose to somebody that nobody's ever heard of. And you have to be that close to collegiate esports to know it's a big deal. Or you could go play schools like USC, UCLA, Washington, BYU, our dreaded rival that we lost in football last week, which more gray hair, or things going on. And so those are the schools we want to play against. The schools that have institutional relationships that are already there and history with, those are more important than understanding who's good at the video game and the 1,500 people in North America, which are conversant enough in our space to understand how good those schools are in those things. And so that's really important. So what would I like to do? Let's get we call Utah versus BYU the holy war of two schools that are pretty antithetical to each other, that are 35 minutes apart. And creating that more common regular version of that in esports would be something that I would love to do.
Okay, it's amazing because like esports is like one other sport that you can beat them at.
No, we'll beat them at everything.
They make a ratio.
Yeah.
At the end of the year,
we'll beat them at everything. We lost them in football last year, but that's an outlier. That's an edge case. Yeah.
AJ, thank you so much for your time. It's been super valuable, super interesting, and I've learned a lot of things that I've never, heard before. So thank you so much for your time.
Anytime, my pleasure. Thank you for reaching out to me.